Hey guys, that's what you like to hear me say, right? Well, today's not a normal day. OG of the HRC here. We are on the third day of riots in America because yet again, another unarmed black man has been killed by a police officer. It took days for that police officer to be arrested. We're still waiting and holding our breath to see if the other 3 officers who stood and watched will ever see their day in court. So many questions that are being left unanswered once more in America. People are wondering how we got here. My explanation is simple. We're a country that was founded on racism. We're a country that was founded on slavery. We're a country that has put band-aids on the race issues in our country and never resolved them. That's how we got there. So today, I'm addressing you as the woman who has a white mother and a Mexican father, but looks pretty white. I'm addressing you to say, we need to have a conversation. This can't be our new normal. So I am asking all of you to please join me for the next few minutes to have an open dialogue according to the OG of the HRC. White privilege. It's something that many people back away from and don't want to talk about. But I feel like those days of backing away and pretending everything's okay, those days are long gone. We have a massive crisis on our hand in this country, and the only way it's going to change is that people who look like me stand up and say, I've had enough, I want to talk about it. Now let me explain what white privilege is. It's very simple, and people always confuse it and convolute it. It's very simple. First and foremost, Hillary Clinton once said, we could solve all the economic problems of every single American, but yet it wouldn't do anything to stop our systematic racism that we have flowing through our country. Nothing. Everyone would be happy, economically happy, but racism would still exist.
We white Americans need to do a better job of listening when African Americans talk about the seen and unseen barriers you face every day.
And this is where white privilege comes into play. A black man and a black woman have a child. They have to sit that child down at some point in their life and have a conversation of what to do if there's cops, what not to do, what to say, how to handle themselves. White man and a white woman do not have to have those conversations solely based on the color of their skin. That's it. That's all that white privilege is. The privilege that a white man and a white woman don't have to stay up at night if their son or daughter is out at a party or out studying or out late, that if a cop pulls that kid over, that kid could end up dead. But the black family has that issue every single day. Every time their child goes out, every time the father goes out, every time the mother goes out, it's in the back of their mind. And why shouldn't it be? Case after case after case of unarmed black men and women in this country getting slaughtered like pigs for nothing. Nothing at all. And if more people don't stand up and talk about white privilege, this problem will just continue on and on and on. Now, that black family could live in Upper East Side, New York, but they still have that in the back of their mind. Has nothing to do with economic advantages. Some of the poorest people in our country are white, and they live up in the Appalachian Mountains. And they have disadvantages beyond, but they don't have the disadvantage of being black in America. They don't have the disadvantage of worrying if their child will make it to 18. And if their child goes off to college, the disadvantage of worrying about that child every single day. Not to say that white men and women aren't scared for their child when they go to college or scared, but systematically, what's happening, the facts are the facts. This is not happening to white men and women's children. White privilege is this. When a young teenage boy goes into a church and kills 8 black members just in cold blood and gets to walk out of there in handcuffs instead of dead, where we just had an unarmed black man who supposedly wrote a bad check, which he didn't, George Floyd. He is killed within 9 minutes because a police officer held his knee on his neck for 9 solid minutes. 2 minutes longer after they knew he didn't have a pulse. So if that's not white privilege, that kid's sitting in prison right now. But George doesn't get to come home. And neither is Trayvon Martin. And neither does Eric Gardner. And on and on and on. That is white privilege. Don't run away from those words. Because when you run away, you're part of the problem. It's not scary. It doesn't mean that I'll say this again, it does not mean that white people don't have problems. I grew up in a very low income home. My parents still are working. They are in their 60s and they still have to work full time. The struggle has always been real for them. They did not buy their first house till they were 50 years old. But they understand that they didn't have the disadvantage of having to sit me and my sister down to have a conversation about what we should or shouldn't do with cops. That is only happening in Black homes. And it is a massive problem. And the only way we solve it is if we continue dialogue like this. And the only way we solve it is if people who look like me with my skin color stand up and say, I've had enough. I got you. So the 60s was a rough time for our country. That's for sure. We lost Dr. King. We lost Kennedy. We lost Robert Kennedy. We lost Malcolm X. And in 1966, a group was formed called the Black Panthers, founded by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale in Oakland, California. Their sole purpose was to protect their own and provide for their own. Now, most of you probably have an image of what you think the Black Panthers are, and I guarantee you what I'm about to say may blow your mind. I know that you all have the images of the Black Panthers with the berets and like looking super cool and, with the guns in the streets of California. But keep in mind, in 1966, you were still allowed to have a gun in public in California. It wasn't until 1967 when Governor Ronald Reagan, good old Ronnie, said no more of that. Simply because Black Panthers in 1967 showed up on the steps of the Capitol Hill in Sacramento and with guns, never shooting, never nothing, but with guns, and it scared the living shit out of them, including the NRA, the gun-toting NRA. They lobbied for that bill to be passed, and he signs it into law. So when someone says that California's liberal with our guns and we have no guns, you can think a Republican, Ronald Reagan. That being said, the entire purpose of the Black Panthers was to protect their own. They had at that time a severely corrupt police department, racist police department in Oakland, California, and they said enough, we're going to protect. There was police brutality happening left, right, and center, and no one was doing anything to protect them. The government was doing nothing. So that's when the guns on the streets with the berets came in. But what's really sad is that most people don't know that the Black Panthers also, their goal was to provide for their own, so that they didn't need the government. So all those theories of Black people, they're lazy or they didn't. It's so funny because the Black Panthers did not want their people to be given services by the federal government. They wanted to provide for their own. They had a free breakfast program for children. They had free groceries for the low income. They had health clinics that saw people for sickle cell, which is very high in Black communities, and then later HIV. They had education. They taught children the actual history of America.
In Oakland, in many ways a poor community, the Panthers are also known for their projects like the breakfast program for school children and for the Community Learning Center. When we visited the center, we saw that they had a different approach to teaching and learning.
They were providing for their own. They didn't want the federal government's help. They couldn't trust the federal government. And why should they? They had lost Dr. King, they had lost Malcolm X, and they said enough. Their friends were dying in the street to police brutality. They had enough. They just wanted to provide their own and be left alone. But that wasn't good enough for the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover. He had to intervene. And he intervened and he spun and he spun and he spun to a point where he incarcerated more and more Black Panthers and he assassinated more and more Black Panthers. And by the time that the 70s came around, the Black Panthers looked nothing like they did in the beginning, and they were radicalized, and the group started to split, and people began to turn on one another. And sadly, ideas and program, it all went away. And by 1982, they were no longer the Black Panther Party. And it's all because the federal government said, no, we don't want you to provide for your own. Because just think, if they did provide for their own, what theories, what racist theories could they put around about Black people that could say, oh, they're lazy, or oh, they're whatever it is that stupid, ignorant people believe? That theory would be gone. And the other problem that the government was having is that a lot of Black Panthers were saying, I will not go to the Vietnam War. Why should I go and fight for a country that does not see me as equal? And they were not okay with that. More Black men died in Vietnam than any other race. That was not random. They needed those bodies for the fake lie of a war that was Vietnam. So it was all a scheme. And it's just heartbreaking because people are not informed of what the Black Panthers actually were, and they're not informed of what our own government did to stop them from providing for their own. And they've continued to do that till this day. They want to keep the Black man and woman down by repressing any thoughts of gathering and of, look at Colin Kaepernick. I am not a Colin Kaepernick fan in terms of football, but he was just kneeling and he lost his job. So the whole why can't they peacefully protest? Well, he did, and he lost his job and he didn't get it back. That's what our government does. Our vice president can tweet about how he wants peaceful protest and he believes it's every American's rights. But yet, when there was a peaceful protest, he did a big to-do and left a 49ers game while Colin Kaepernick kneeled.
As players from the San Francisco 49ers took a knee during the national anthem Sunday, Vice President Mike Pence staged a protest of his own. The vice president, who flew from Las Vegas to Indianapolis for Sunday's game, standing with his hand on his heart. But soon after, he and his wife abruptly left the stadium.
So it's a never-ending circle that's orchestrated by our own federal government. That's a big part of how we got here that no one talks about. So I just think it's this simple. I think that more people need to become aware of how we've got here. More people need to be informed. If you have time to binge watch anything on Netflix, you have time to learn about how we got here. Because what we learned in school is nothing compared to the truth. Nothing at all. We have a massive problem with systematic racism in our country, and unless more people who look like me begin to say that from the rooftops, it will always be there. Having a Black president wasn't enough. We became complacent as a country. We thought, oh, everything's great, everything's fine. And then he left. And then we went, what is going on? But those problems were always there. More unarmed Black men and women were being killed under Obama. Trayvon Martin happened under Obama. Eric Garner happened under Obama. And on and on. It's always been there, and it'll always be there until more people again who look like me say, I've had enough. What can I do to help? I think the best thing that any person can do is inform themselves and find out the truth and uncover the truth. Because the media is always going, these days, there is no such thing as journalistic nothing anymore. It's people's opinions. Twitter is people's opinions. Facebook is people's opinions. Inform yourself. Read. Learn about systematic racism. Learn about the mass incarceration of Black men. Read The Color Purple again. Read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Right? Google Angela Davis of the Black Panthers. Google Huey Newton. Google Malcolm X and read Malcolm X's autobiography. Rewatch Dr. King's speeches.
A riot is the language of the unheard. What is it that America has failed to hear?
Heck, even watch Robert Kennedy's speech when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. standing on top of a car and trying to keep everyone calm.
Martin Luther King dedicated his life to love and to justice between fellow human beings. He died in the cause of that effort.
We can do better, America, but we only do better when we're informed and we're standing strong together. As corny as it is, we truly are stronger together. And many people out there want to divide us. And the reason they want to divide is divide and conquer. But we can't let that happen. We can no longer allow Black men and women to be slaughtered in front of our eyes. It's not okay. We have no excuse. We all have cell phones and now we're all seeing the videos. It's real and it's not going away. So please take the time to inform yourself so that you can make educated decisions on what to do next, what fits your little box. Every little thing helps, but the biggest thing of all is standing up and saying, what can I do? All right, guys, until next time, make sure you check us out on Spotify, iTunes, and of course right here on YouTube. Make sure you push the subscribe button. Until next time, the OG of the HRC, signing out.